Welcome back. South Africans between the ages of 15 and 24 are struggling to find work. The levels of unemployment in that age group has increased to 52.8% in the third quarter. Now, the overall unemployment rate in the country's hiked up to 27.5% in the 3 months to September. ENCA's Dimakatso Togwana reports.
South Africans looking for work are feeling the effects of a weak GDP growth. The economy contracted in the first half of this year, and these jobs numbers show the extent of that decline. 6.2 million people were jobless compared to 6.08 million in the previous quarter. According to Statistics South Africa, the number of unemployed people was up by 127,000 in the third quarter. This means that out of 30.8 million people of employable age, only 16.4 million actually have jobs. The number of those discouraged from seeking jobs has dropped.
We released the GDP figures recently, and as we indicated that we are in recession. If you look at private households, and these are people who work in our houses when we are out doing other business, if we cannot even afford to hire those because we have lost 30,000 jobs, it's already telling us that what we have picked up on the side of the economy is now affecting us on the side of employment.
7 out of 10 industries shed jobs, 88,000 in the informal sector and 65,000 in the formal sector. Most job losses were in private households. 30,000 people are out of work as tough economic conditions take hold. Mining and manufacturing collectively shed 54,000 jobs. On the opposite spectrum, the financial and business services sector created over 100,000 jobs. Youth unemployment continues to be a massive challenge. 7.9 million young people between the ages of 15 and 24 are not working, nor are they in education or training. The unemployment rate among young people remains high, regardless of education levels. Maluleke says efforts by government to create jobs like the recent Job Summit won't bear fruits immediately.
It's too early to see those things. There's always a lag. When you have a policy position that needs to be implemented, you don't just have a policy position and overnight you see a change. But besides, this quarter that we are reporting on, which is the third quarter, is up until the end of September 2018. So certainly you are not going to pick up the policy prescripts that have just recently been announced.
What could be the solution to South Africa's unemployment debacle?
One of the remedies is to reduce the power of trade unions who are dead against employing youngsters to take the jobs of the older people. There's been huge opposition to any initiative that's been aimed at trying to promote youth employment.
Dimakatso Togwana, Boksburg.
Meanwhile, the SABC could soon be adding to the country's growing unemployment numbers. It'll be embarking on a cost-cutting restructuring program. 981 employees could soon be without work. Although it's not yet clear which divisions will be affected, the SABC executives say the process will impact all employees. ENCA's Ikona Chona reports.
Is the South African Broadcasting Corporation sinking or floating? Since July this year, this team of executives has been tasked with keeping a firm hand at the tiller. So, how are things going?
If you look at our net loss year to date, we're sitting at about 323 million. And the focus loss for the financial year would then be at about 805 million. We are technically insolvent as the SABC. We are not able to fulfill our monthly obligations.
This graph shows that for years the broadcaster had been paying salary increases despite operating at a loss. The admission is that the SABC is struggling with what has been described as an unrealistic wage bill.
We're sitting at 3.1 billion from a wage bill point of view. And as you know, the expenditure is at 7.2 billion. The total cost to company of the group executives, it stands at 25 million. Then you have the cost of the freelancers, which is at about 500 million per annum. We have about 5 layers of management, which makes up to about 495 managers overall. And the cost to company is standing at 630 million. If you include junior managers, that number balloons to 1 billion per annum.
The public broadcaster says it's in the process of recovering 60 million rand lost through irregularities under the previous executives.
There were ad hoc increases, that were implemented without any just cause. We are delving deep into those, to begin to understand what transpired there. Secondly, there were irregular appointments, where there is no proper documentation to justify those appointments. And thirdly, there are those promotions that can never be justified.
The SABC's top brass says it's currently implementing aggressive changes that could even see things such as these bottles of waters provided at Wednesday's media briefing becoming a thing of the past. Zikhona Shona, Johannesburg.
Well, gender-based violence is finally being discussed on the national stage. President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered the keynote address at the very first Gender-Based Violence Summit in Centurion. He says government will put in more stringent measures to ensure that gender-based crimes are eradicated. According to Stats SA, the number of women murdered increased by 117% between 2015 and 2017. At the same time, sexual offences jumped by 53% during the same period. NCA's Masego Rahlaha has more.
Standing firm against gender-based violence and doing whatever it takes to get their point across. Protesters and activists at South Africa's very first gender-based violence summit didn't leave anything to chance. They held up underwear during the keynote address, protesting silently.
As a society, we must express our deep gratitude to people like Cheryl Zondi for leading the way in the struggle against sexual violence and affirm our commitment to support and protect them. Let us pledge here and now to begin to change the way we communicate about gender-based violence and sexual assault. Our language must empower and support the voice of survivors.
Many women shared harrowing details of their different stories.
Approximately 11 years ago, I lost my mother at the hands of my adopted brother. He and a group of friends broke into our home. My 7-month pregnant mother was sleeping in her room with my uncle sleeping in the next room. They broke into the house, first suffocated my uncle to death, and then they proceeded to my mother's room. 1, demanding money, and 2, we later learned they were there for her body part. My mom was ripped open while she was still alive, and the baby was removed from her body. She was later cut to pieces, mutilated, in other words, until there were no limbs.
There were emotional scenes as a woman who was gang raped by 8 men showed those gathered here her horrific scars. Even those in the higher echelons of power couldn't hold back their tears.
I have 5 operations on my stomach. I will stand up, guys. Thank you. I'm sorry. I was not born like this, President. I was not.
Another woman is spending time at the Kgosi Mampuru prison in Pretoria after taking the law into her own hands and murdering her allegedly abusive husband.
If you sentence a person, you must not just think for that person, also think for the children. Because now I've done this thing that I have done. I'm in prison. I've been arrested from 2003, sentenced in 2005. I was sentenced to life sentence. My children, my last born, when I got arrested, my last born was 4 years old. She is now 19 years. Every day she's asking, Mommy, when are you coming home?
In this case, the activists made their demands heard. Masego Rahlaga, Centurion.
I'm Andrea van Wyk, and that was your Week in One. Until next time, take care.